So I'm going to start off here with the head body, the main part. Start blocking some of this stuff out. So the first thing you want to decide is which of these two you want to use. So we've got the regular clay layers and the new primitives. So these are still in beta, so they're still very much a work in progress. But they're still usable in the current state that they're in. So the main difference is the clay layers are destructive and the primitives are non-destructive. So you can blend these together with booleans, like a live boolean system, so you can move the operands around and it's going to update in real time. Whereas with these layers, it's destructive. So once you add that detail or a boolean, it's locked into the layer. You can't change it after the fact. And the other main difference is that these tools here, the regular clay layers, can use all these surface tools. So if you're used to a sculpting program, you've got the warp tool, which is just like a move tool, and then smooth, build up, crease, flatten. So you can't use them with the prims, the live prims. But at any point, once you create a live prim, as I mentioned in the other videos on live prims that I did, you can convert the live prims to clay. So both of these can obviously be in the same scene, but they can't interact in any way. So you need to you need to convert the live prim to regular clay layer. You'll see the button will pop up when you're working on one of those layers. You'll see it down here, and then once you convert it over, you can use all these surface sculpting tools as normal. So in this case, I'm going to use a regular clay. I don't need the non-destructive nature of the prims, so I'll use a regular clay layer because this surface is doesn't need to be perfect, and I can see because I have a reference image where I'm going to be placing these, so I'm not going to really need to move them around. But what you could do is block it out with the live prims, and then when this is all in place and you're happy, you can still move them around. Then you can convert this over to a regular layer and then use your warp to rough up the edges. So in this case, for the sake of it, I probably will use a live prim just so I can block this out as accurately as I can without eyeballing it up to this ref. So I will use a live prim. And obviously this isn't orthographic, but I can get a good idea of what it needs to be. I'll add some taper, reverse that taper. So when you grab these, you can pull them in from one side or hold the secondary trigger, and that'll work from both sides symmetrically. So that's what I'm going to do here. Get it roughly the size that I want. And pull it up a bit. Maybe make it a little bit. No, that's not too bad. I think I'll just leave it at that. And you can add more resolution there if you want, just to sharpen up that edge. And then when we convert this over later, you can use your smoothing tools on the surface tools. You can use smooth as you would in a sculpting program, just to smooth off the edges. And as I said, you can use the warp tool then, just to rough up the edges here so you can see where they're all wobbly. So yeah, that's about right there. Maybe take it in a little bit. That's not too bad. I wasn't. I was the era before SpongeBob. Well, I watched it when my daughter was younger. Watched it with her, but I didn't grow up with it. I grew up with much older cartoons. But anyway, so I'm not too familiar with old Bob's Anatomy here, but this looks pretty decent enough for the size, and also yeah, it's not too bad for the width. I might just bring it out a touch more, and that looks good enough. And then for the eyes, I can just move that back out of the way. So just a quick note on saving. I've saved this scene. You have to save your scene initially. The very first time you're going to have to save it on desktop. So as I mentioned in the last video, I just do everything from within virtual desktop. So yeah, I'm just staying in VR and doing all that. But if you're not doing that, you can just save it on the desktop on your computer, And once you have the file saved, here's your quick save. So at the moment, these are the only options available. So open new scene. So you can't do a save as from in here. So just be aware of that. Save your scene first, and then you can just keep hitting that button there, the quick save, and it'll just overwrite whatever file you have saved. Um, so I'm just realised there as well. I've added a little small bit of taper here, an extra bit of taper on this that I did off camera there, because it was very late last night and I had to go to bed. So I picked it up again. I realised I just wanted a bit more taper. So just a quick note then. You can see it's very dark here, and this is the lighting setup I use. The lighting's over here in environment. This is the lighting setup I use when I'm just doing sculpting, anatomy sculpting, just sketching, practicing. So I use a particular light setup for that. Um, so you can just change the HDRI here. So there's your IBL, your HDRI. Then you've got these other lights here, and you can play with all the settings, rotation and altitude. So at the moment, there's no physical lights that you can move around in the scene as you might be used to from a 3D program. Maybe they might be added in the future. People have asked for it, but I'm not sure. So in the meantime, you can just rotate, and then that's just to raise up the height. So you can pretty much get it positioned where you like without having the actual physical lights. Intensity, light on. I usually just leave these ones off. It's just my personal preference. I have a key light and an IBL. Depends what I'm doing as well. I'll change around the lighting setup like I'm doing right now. So I'll change that to I like that one there, Atelier. Or what's your own? Gdansk. If anyone's used to substance paint, you'll recognize these. So just whatever, choose whichever you prefer. Alton Forest, not bad either, depending on what you're doing. So I'll probably stick to. I like that Atelier for certain types of hard surfacey sort of stuff. And then also you can go in here and you can change your background color here with the put your gradient on and show the IBL, turn down the blurriness. So I usually just leave that off and just have a custom background color. And then as I mentioned here, you can show and hide your grid. So that's just a quick aside on the lighting. So I'm going to leave that. It's brighter. And you could go in here and start to, a lot of people doing things like this, they would like to apply colors as they go, and materials or colors. But in my case, I like to just work grayscale most of the time, and then that's it. Like, I'll just set up I'll have one material there, and I'll just keep applying that material to in this case is the default. And if you go over here to your color picker, whatever this is set to, when you close modeler down, it'll always open up and default, because the settings will be saved between sessions. So it'll default to whatever colors chosen here will be in this default material 0, and that's the diffuse. So if you're painting, that'll be the diffuse, or you can turn that to none, and then you'll see here you can choose a color then that way, and that's just using material versus diffuse is using the paintbrush here, or the paint bucket tool, which can be found here if you have a layer selected. So I'm just using this material here as the default. Set the roughness, and then every layer I create will automatically have this material. So whichever way you prefer to do it. If you want to create new materials, go back out, and the plus here will create a new one, and then edit properties, and then you can set it up there whatever way you like. So I am going to just stick with the material 0 here for this. And now with that out of the way, I'll just move on to the eyes. So I'll move this back out of the way, and because this is sized up now, pretty much as we want it, you can just move that back. And now I know I'll be able to create these elements from the ref, and they'll match up to the size. So we'll block out this other stuff now, and we can do the details later on. These holes and the mouth. So I'll just start with the eyes here. I'll create a regular clay layer, Switch over the sphere and center up there. We don't really need, I can take this off here and just position it freely and then snap the rotation by hitting this once. So we still have our symmetry here if we want it. And I'll just maybe stretch that. That should do there. Just a placeholder. We can adjust it later if we need to. You can see this one here. The two of them are different sizes. This one looks more spherical. So it doesn't have to be exact. It's just for the tutorial, I suppose. So I'll lay that down here with this top button on the primary. As I said in the other videos, that might change. It's still, these things are changing obviously in the beta from time to time, so that might change back again. It used to be on trigger. So create another new layer and maybe make this one a bit closer to a sphere, and that'll do us there. Right, so that'll do us there for the eyes, and I can just move them back. Hopefully in future releases we'll be able to get transparency in the layer, so you'll be able to do this, you know, in front of the reference image, be handier. In this case here, I might just you know, I might just move all this stuff around to create the, move it in front here to create the trousers and the short and those different bits and pieces. So again, for this I'm just going to use a regular layer as well. None of this stuff really needs to be destructive. So use a cube, switch over the cube, and I'm just resetting it there by double clicking on the icon and scaling it down with a thumbstick as I move it with the gizmo. And then I'm holding down the secondary trigger here to, as I say, it doesn't have to be exact. So about that maybe. And I just want to see what res it is. I'm just going to up the res a bit. Just a note on the res there. The resolution, you can go a lot higher on these clay layers than you can on these on the SDF layers, the live blend prims. They're a lot more intensive resource wise. There's work being done to upgrade to the GPU, so in the future that should be a lot quicker, but for the moment, yeah, I don't advise going very high on these layers because it'll start to slow things down. These the clay, the primitives, the light blend, yeah. So, but these ones here, you can go quite high on the regular clay layers. So I'll move that down, lay it down first, and I'm gonna just taper this a bit, scale it up. Maybe around there, and I'll just add some fillet onto this bit around. I should have did that as well there, but it doesn't matter. As I said, because we have smooth tools here, all this stuff, we can smooth all this out, because again, it's a rough sort of a form. It doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be mathematically perfect or anything. So because I didn't create a new layer, the clay is added to that and it's blended in automatically. So now if I turn on symmetry, and I can turn on the or switch to the warp tool, and then I'm holding down shift here, and then the thumbstick on the primary then is adjusting the size. So you can see these brushes here are volume based, and then the smooth tool is ray casting, so you can just smooth that out. I'm going to add some more res there, and you can also hold down smooth, open the menu, and then your smooth tool settings will be here. So I'll just turn the strength down on that, and I'm just barely tapping the controller button there. I'll just move that into place, and that looks okay. I can always move that in with the warp tool. At the moment, hopefully we'll have non-uniform scaling or even better FFDs in the future, but for the moment, a trick is you can just use the warp tool here, switch over the square, and then I will just I'll just have to size it up. And yeah, I can just bring it in here. I'm going to put the hardness all the way up, left and right on the thumbstick there in the primary. And then I'm just holding down that top button, that delay clay, and then I'm using the primary trigger just to move that in a bit. And I can just move it in and then move that back in. And for the trousers then, yeah, I suppose you can easily just duplicate this layer here. And to do that, you just select the layer and then just hold the trigger down and then just pull your gizmo. And you can do it without the gizmo. I use the gizmo a lot for this type of stuff, layout and that, but you don't have to. If you're doing more organic pieces, you can do all this freehand. So I can just turn off the gizmo. And you can see here the reason that's happening is because I have symmetry on, so it's locking across the plane, and this preserve symmetry is on here, so I can turn either of these off, and then I can move it freely, and I can still scale it, place it, and then I can hit, while I'm holding it and moving it with the primary trigger, I can hit the secondary trigger, and that's going to give me duplicates. So if I wanted to grab this gizmo, I can move it down, cloning it with the trigger, and then just as I rotate it here, I'm hitting this top button on you can see there the little magnet and the angle icon, the top button on the secondary. And as I'm rotating this, if you pull out, you can slow it down. Pull in, it'll go faster. And then you can hit that top button on the secondary and that'll snap at the increments. And the increments will change depending on if you go out to these dots out here, it's going to go 15. And if you go in here, or 15 and 5, I think it is. But yeah, I just want to go 180. And I let go over there by mistake, so flip it around. And then I'm just using the thumbstick there again. Now I could have just created a new layer here, but it's just as easy to just use this, and then I can switch over. Switch that back, reset that. Gizmo again. Bottom button here to invert for subtract. And then I can just delete that bit there. And delete that down here, maybe there. Now you can see here that this piece, has fillets on it here. So again, I could have just did a preview piece, a layer, and used these fillets and around just to set that up. But in this case, I'm just going to switch that back to sphere. Left on the thumbstick to go to hardness 0. Hardness is here on the settings. Remove the gizmo. Symmetry's on. And then if I want, I can just do this freehand by just using the smooth tool. Or set it up with the, as I said, with the preview, whichever. But in this case, I'll just show you the two different options, how you can use these more freestyle sculpting tools along with the more sort of accurate sort of stuff with the gizmo and the live prims as well. So I'm going to leave this video here just for these few pieces, and the next video then I'll just finish the belt and the trousers.